you know, I thought this was worthy of a video because I do mention court cases a lot, and I guess I do have a few going on. But to answer your question, the majority, if not 95%, are against the local authority in some shape or form. That's everything from planning to heritage to building control to licensing, and council tax and business rates. That whole sector makes up the majority of the public sector cases I'm bringing, and majority of the cases that I'm bringing against them. Don't get me wrong, a few years ago we were on the back foot, we were being attacked. One property, commercial / residential, which is now all sorted, rented, really good income producing property. I think we counted something like 17 different types of action against us from the local authority. None of them succeeded. Every single one of them fell by the wayside, and we are now pursuing them for costs in two different directions. And one is costs for legal fees on them discontinuing a refusal for a license days before the trial. We had a file delivered from a barrister that they appointed. It was like this thick, and that is no exaggeration. I think I've even shown it on one of the videos. We estimated that cost about 12 grand in barrister fees just to produce that. All a load of fucking rubbish, for them just to withdraw. And we agreed to withdraw because it wouldn't have done us any favours if we went to court, because we said to them that they should withdraw because their case is flawed, X, Y, and for X, Y, and Z reasons, and they admitted that. But we said that we were going to go to court and see it through just to claim our costs. But when you take a local authority to court, or you defend a position, the threshold to get your costs within the same hearing is much higher than if it's the other way around, if they win, which is something we should already be looking at. How the fuck can a local authority be breaching their own rules, spending public money, taxpayers' money, on personal vendettas that have no prospect of success, and then have a higher threshold to be put on the hook, to be called to account, than the people that they're bringing? That's obscene. However, as always, we find a way around it. We have established now already, time and time again, that if we're successful in court, or we are successful in a settlement, it's always without prejudice to costs. And then we bring a separate civil matter where the threshold is much lower, where the courts are much more open. And I say the courts, it's the law. The judges, in my experience, the judges fucking hate the council. They hate the public sector, but they are bound by the laws that they're enforcing. And that's what I love about judges. They are always impartial. I've never met someone, even when they side against me, who I've not respected for being very, very impartial. And I even have had a judge say to me, I want to award you costs, but I cannot do it. I am bound by the laws. But we bring a civil claim. The threshold is lower to be met. We've got more chance of success, and therefore a deal is normally done way before. We've even had a criminal, I say criminal with brackets in it. Effectively, we breached an abatement notice, which was a load of bollocks. We submitted our evidence. They decided to continue. The evidence involved a bad character application against their key witness. It showed that they'd manipulated. We got it all recorded on CCTV. Anyway, they decided not to discontinue it. We went to court. They appointed a barrister. The barrister saw the evidence and immediately called for an adjournment. Went to the rooms with our barrister and said, look, I'm going to discontinue the case. We'll award you 25% of the costs without prejudice. Will you accept it? Now, what that meant is we could either go for the full costs in this criminal proceedings arena and have a much harder time of meeting some certain thresholds. Don't get me wrong, I was confident. But the lawyer I had, this was before I had an in-house guy, the lawyer I had said, look, we're better to take the 25% now, get it discontinued without prejudice to pursue the rest of the costs in the civil claim. Now, after that, you then have to take it to a civil lawyer. He couldn't deal with it. He was criminal. So we then go to civil solicitors, and no one has any experience with dealing with it because no one ever does that. So I appoint my own lawyer. We start pressing the tape, pushing the door, pushing the boundaries. And we got a trial date. It's like 6 months away, but it was like a year away when we first done it. Now the council are trying to do a settlement before that to pay part of our costs. So there's always ways around it. But yes, look, I do. The thing is, I just don't take any shit. I mean, for every single project I do, I have people let me down, take money, do a shit job, don't turn up, try and steal from me. I've got JV partners where the deal has been successful. We've made huge amounts of money, but because the deal under the terms of the agreement, the contract, no longer fits with what they want, they decide to breach it. I'll never ever back down. I mean, I actually see this as a bit of fun. This is sport for me. And when you have cases where you're in the wrong, which we are sometimes, don't get me wrong, you have to sort of take a view on it. But what I can say, hand on heart, without shadow of a doubt, is the litigation I have against individuals in the private sector are without doubt winnable. So what we will do is we will press them all the way. Now, the good thing about pushing these all the way is, one, you get the win. Two, you get your costs. Three, it's there in the public domain. And I recently settled on a really small one, restriction. I did a video on it. They refused to give us the restriction. We went to court. The judge called their bullshit. They said, oh, Mr. Trivedi's being unreasonable. She said, oh, well, if that's the case, go and have an hour, go and get it agreed. If that's all agreeable, obviously they were bullshitting. She did not like that one bit. So she then gave us, in open correspondence, I think it was a month, to try and get a deal done. The day before the trial, I was in Dubai. I knew we were going to win. They completely caved and paid all of our costs. Now, when I say pay all of our costs, they paid 75%, because that's the threshold the judge is likely to give unless exceptional circumstances dictate. Now, I wanted to go to court. I was like, fuck them. Let's push them for everything. Let's get the open win in court. But my lawyer and my barrister said, look, they're not asking for a sealed settlement. They're that fucking stupid. Their advice and their representation is that bad. They've pushed them all the way. They've spent probably just amount as you, if not more. And then they're going to have to pay the majority of your costs. So he said, the problem is, if you go to court with this offer, we've got to say to the judge why we are here. And I said, well, that's a really good reason. Here's all the open correspondence. They've dragged their heels. And they said, yeah, look, we get all that. We do get all that. But we would advise you to take it. Now, I was in Dubai. I was watching my kids play basketball. And I was like, look, do you know what? Let's get the win. Let's get 75% of our costs, of our supposed costs, and crack on from there. And that really told us a lot about that case, that they're a bunch of Muppets. We can now prove that every corner that you turn, they breached an agreement. Every time an agreement, terms and conditions doesn't suit them, they just change their mind. We've got like 4 or 5 examples factually backed up now one win in court, which we're going to present, which will be brilliant. But it taught us that they are either getting great advice and not listening to it, which means they're complete Muppets, or the advice is poor and their egos are being pursued until the last minute where they're being told they're going to lose. Either way, we now get a really good insight that all we have to do is sit tight, get it to court, and we'll win, and we'll get our costs paid. And it's as simple as that. So yes, we do have a lot of legal cases. The way I look at it is, we're buying millions of pounds worth of property, we're selling loads of property, we've got loads of projects on the go at one time in a short space of time. You're going to kiss a lot of frogs, and I don't back down ever, and I don't lose even when I do. Even when I lose, it's a fucking win. That's how confident we are. That's why I have an in-house lawyer. I will not take anything laying down.